Shalom, everybody. Today we'll start the laws of cooking on Shabbat called BISHUL in Rabbi Melamed's book. Um, and bishul is just a general word because it also includes baking and sautéing and every other kind of food preparation. And there's even an opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, not in the laws of Shabbat, but in the laws of Isur ve'ater, in what's forbidden and allowed to eat, that putting in vinegar for pickling doesn't matter if it's vegetables or fruit or meat or fish. That is also a form of bishul according to the Shulchan Aruch. So, as an introduction, Rabbi Melamed brings a very interesting idea that it all goes back to the Garden of Eden, and that when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit, um, I always was under the impression that the wording was cursed, but apparently the only curse that it says is about the snake, and then Arura Adama Ba'avurecha, that the land, the earth, is cursed because of you or on your behalf. So, but when Hashem talks to Adam and Eve, he actually says the word Amar, which is just, a conversation, a soft conversation, and I think that teaches us how to relate to people, even if we are angry or disappointed. So, L'Adam Amar, that if because you ate from the tree, the land won't give to you the food the way it was in the Garden of Eden, and you're even going to have thorns and thistles, and you're going to have to what's called the sweat of your brow. You'll eat bread until you return to the ground because that's where you came from. So with that understanding, it seems that in Garden of Eden, food preparation was not a thing. It was already ready, and from that, some of the rabbis, and I'll leave this to Rabbi Dr. Shaul to explain in his course about the future and what we believe, what the different opinions are. But just in general, it seems like there is an opinion in Chazal that just like in the Garden of Eden, the food was already prepared and they didn't have to do any kind of work, including maybe even lunch boxes on a tree. I know that sounds silly, but that's how I grew up with those childish descriptions. Also, in what's called Olam Haba, the next world, it is going to be like that. And so when the rabbis said that L'olam haba, there's no eating and drinking, which is in Brachot, page 17a, and in Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadi, we're almost there with Daf Yomi, and it was just their understanding that Olam haba could be maybe two or three different stages. And so the immediate Olam haba is for every one of us when we pass away, we go into a realm called the next world. And the Masechet Avot describes the preparation that we need to make in this world to come into the next world. And that's also the explanation of Kol Yisrael Yesh Lehem Chelek B'Olam Haba, that everybody has a part in that. It's not talking about the future after Mashiach comes or anything like that. It's just talking immediately after our passing. And so one more note about that. In the end of Vayikra, the last chapter, Parashat Bechukotai, Nachmanides explains that when it says that Hashem will remove the vicious beasts from the ground, from the land, verse 6 here, I will give the land respite from vicious beasts. His explanation is he will remove them from the world entirely. The verse is to be understood in its plain sense that evil beasts will not come into their land, for since there will be plenitude and an abundance of blessings, and the cities will be full of people, wild beasts will not come into the inhabited places. And according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that he will cause them to cease from existing, from causing harm. The verses stating that I will cause the evil to cease out of the land. And that is his opinion, that's the explanation. So, according to him, nothing will change in the time of the Mashiach. But obviously, when we go to the next world right after our passing, we don't have a body and it's just our soul. So that's the explanation why we don't have eating or drinking in the next world. So with that introduction, I think we'll understand a great deal more about what Rabbi Malama is trying to say. So it takes a great deal of effort to prepare food, Animals eat their food raw in its natural state, but this is insufficient for mankind, whose nature is far more refined and complex. Man must produce his own food. First, he must prepare the ground, he must remove the stones, and then plow, plant, weed, and prune. Yet even after the wheat has ripened, it is still not fit to be eaten. In order to obtain the edible kernels, he must thresh and winnow. Even then, the grains remain inedible until they are cooked or made into flour and bread. To make bread, he must go further. He must grind the kernels, remove the chaff, sift the flour, knead the dough, and bake it. So we all know these things, but it's interesting that we never think about it like that, and it's just the way we are. If we have pets, then of course we do give them prepared food, but some pets can eat raw bones or fruits or vegetables. The elephant doesn't need you to cook the straw for them or anything like that. So that's why he's talking about that. And also, just before we continue, the understanding of Shabbat is that it's like Olam Haba, that it's a 1/60th of the next world of after our passing, and that's why we have the special oneg of Shabbat and the special enjoyment, and even if we're in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing there to make us happy, there's still some kind of feeling that we have an extra soul and that we are in an elevated status. So, had Adam not sinned, food preparation would have been effortless and simple. Man would have gone into the field, plucked delicious baked goods and rich foods off the trees, and eaten them. That's what it says in Kiddushin 82a. If he felt like it, he could work a bit in the field and season his food to taste. And we learned about that 2 weeks ago in the Parsha, where Hashem says that they can prepare the manna. If the manna was already prepared, why do they have to prepare it? And so this is the extra effort that they wanted to add to its taste and stuff like that. The sages inform us that in the future, after we have rectified Adam's sin, we will return to this state. Delicious baked goods and pretty clothes will grow on trees in Eretz Israel, but in the meantime, man must toil and struggle in order to produce even a single loaf of bread. This accords with God's statement to Adam after the sin, "The land is cursed on your account. In sorrow you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat bread until you return to the ground," as we read before. The sin caused all of nature to deteriorate, and what grows from the earth is often insufficiently pure and evolved to consume in its natural state. Man must perform many steps to turn the earth's produce into edible food, but on Shabbat we ascend to a level that approaches the worlds to come. We connect to a level beyond sin, beyond the need to work in order to improve the world. This enables us to understand the inner significance of all melachot. With this knowledge, we can improve the world. There are 11 melachot connected to growing and making food: sowing, plowing, reaping, gathering, threshing, winnowing, separating, grinding, sifting, kneading, and cooking or baking. And 3 additional melachot are necessary to produce animal-based foods: trapping, which is of like deer or birds, slaughtering, and skinning. We will begin with the Malacha of Bishul as it is most relevant to us today. And I believe that in Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, right after he gives a couple of introductions, the very first chapter, I think it's chapter 2 or 3, is the laws of Bishul, because that is the most common. And like I said, there's so many things that may look like cooking, and that's why the rabbis discuss them. And if you remember, I talked about a very hot day in Israel where people were making omelets or whatever on the hood of their vehicle because it was so hot. So again, that the rabbis didn't talk about eggs; they talked about other things. But they also were aware of warm springs, especially near Tiberias. But in Europe, there's many different places. I think there's even a city in England called Bath, and it's because of all this. So anyway, so that's the introduction, and I hope this was helpful.